Well, it was only a matter of time before we got our next round of media propaganda, war propaganda. We've been shooting them down left and right here as these stories pop up in the Western media. Then they are later debunked. We've been talking about the Mark Twain, the famous Mark Twain quote, which has been used over and over on this show because it's so true that a lie can travel all the way around the world before truth has a chance to put on its pants. And that's what's been happening. It happened again over the weekend when reports started popping up all over Western media news outlets that Putin had used chemical weapons to attack troops in eastern Ukraine. And when I saw this story, of course, when I saw the story, I immediately started questioning things. Whoa, wait a second. Where is this information coming from? And if you watch this show, fortunately, I think you are rightfully skeptical, right? I would say most people who are watching this are probably pretty skeptical when you hear these stories now, that as soon as the Western media, like it's on front page of every news organization, right? It's all over the Sunday talk shows. Chuck Todd is asking all of his guests about this new chemical attack, and the U.S. is indignant about it. And then 60 Minutes on Sunday night runs a whole interview with Vladimir Zelensky. Like, wake up, everyone, right? So I think you guys are smart enough to know that, who watch this show, and start to question things, not just fall in line with this Western media narrative. We found out this. We found out about this report, right? This report of Putin with this chemical attack. Where did it come from? We were questioning the sourcing on this. And it turns out, if you go right to the source, it comes from Ukrainian government officials, once again, by the way. It came from not just Ukrainian government officials, but it came from the Azov regiment in eastern Ukraine, the Nazi-run Azov battalion in eastern Ukraine.
So these are the things that have been controversial, right? Because we are supposed to believe Russia is bad, right? Which, like, we're not saying Russia had any business entering a country that did not welcome them. Okay. But then when you realize that arming Ukraine just sort of blindly with money and weapons is also maybe not the best strategy, because there has been a right-wing militia group, which is very Nazi-oriented, that has sort of not assimilated, it's sort of merged with the Ukrainian military, right? And so for a long time, you weren't supposed to mention the Azov regiment or say that they had any type of...
Did we lose them?
I think so.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if that was my audio that went off or theirs.
Yeah, no, it wasn't. It doesn't seem to be yours.
They probably haven't fixed their network yet.
No, they're back.
Oh, we're back. Sorry. Thank you guys for taking that.
No problem.
So just today, the Associated Press was covering this chemical weapons assertion, actually did mention that the assertion by the Azov regiment, and they gave a qualifier. They actually called them a far-right group that is now part of the Ukrainian military. So not only are they saying that they exist, that they are far-right, and they are actually a part of the military that Western countries are actively funding. And they further said they could not verify this assertion, which I think these are like, there's three pieces here that is interesting that now Google has said that it will punish anyone for saying that the Azov Brigade is part of Ukrainian army. This is something that has not been widely accepted, but now these pieces of it, that they exist, that they have some kind of way to like release PR, that they are a far right, that they are a part of the military, and that we are not blindly just accepting their assertions anymore. So I think this is bigger than just like that one sentence.
Someone in our chat says, I haven't heard anything about a chemical attack. Well, you must be living under a rock, because it was literally all over the news and everywhere. Here's just an example on the BBC, but all over the news. But this is amazing because, as we reported last week, Google, yes, released this internal memo sent out to creators. And we showed it right here. We showed the text. We showed the emails from Google that said, if you mention that the Azov battalion is part of the Ukrainian military, you will be deplatformed. Well,
specifically, it said if you say that Ukrainians are enacting violence on other people and so
yes,
wasn't the word genocide even in there? I believe.
I don't recall.
I think it just used the sort of like generic, if you say Ukrainians are inflicting violence on Ukrainians.
Right.
Like they're hurting their own people, I think is how they put it.
Which is something that has happened, right? And so we can't quantify who is the worst of the worst at this point. We know what the Western media wants us to think. But what's interesting is that because we are supposed to buy the black and white sides, then you also can't believe any level of gray. And that's very dangerous. It has been very dangerous. And now the Associated Press is willingly, I mean, it's a world gone mad, right?
Well, no, I mean, so here the Associated Press also is embedded with the Azov Battalion, which why won't they say what they actually are, which are Nazis?
Well, they're calling them far right.
Far right. So what does it mean to be far right? I mean, okay, if you're far right, does that make you I mean, you can be far right and not be a Nazi. Like, can you be a libertarian, which is arguably far right? Does that make you a Nazi? I mean, what, but you can't say it in here. They are Nazis. They absolutely are Nazis.
Well,
and you can't say it. Nevertheless, let's just get back on track here, which is the Associated Press is saying that they cannot verify this report. Now, let's read it, in fact. You didn't read this, did you, on the air?
No, I didn't.
Here was the report from the Associated Press. In Mariupol, a strategic port city in Donbass, a Ukrainian regiment defending a steel mill claimed a drone dropped a poisonous substance on the city. It indicated that there were no serious injuries. But now the U.S., of course, we're monitoring reports of possible chemical weapons attacks in Mariupol. And just watch the news about this, right? It's all over the news. You just turn on CNN this afternoon, MSNBC, and more. Chemical attacks we're really troubled. And then just go to Twitter. And this is what happened on Twitter. This is pretty amazing because within a short amount of time, unless you're living under a rock, you would have seen people like Adam Kinzinger, who's an absolute nut, Republican Adam Kinzinger, who claims he's a Republican, I don't know, says, if we let nukes prevent us from action, then expect literally every country to try to get nukes in a few years. And
literally every country has nukes already.
And he's literally talking about this chemical attack. Like, again, these are the things being used by these clowns to try to get us into a nuclear war. Don't let them do it. I mean, these guys literally are in power in Washington, D.C. These guys are members of Congress. These guys have power. They were voted into office. And here is a guy basically saying we need to use nuclear weapons. We need to use these nuclear weapons. And by the way, then I tweeted this a little while later. Remember, wrong one. Shoot, I grabbed my wrong tweet. Damn it. But hey, that was a good tweet also.
It was a good tweet.
Damn it.
I want to know who elected that guy. Who elected that guy? Who elected somebody that is like just now become aware that nuclear proliferation is a big deal and that there are countries that have it and there are countries that want it. Like I've known this since I was like 4.
Yeah.
Sean Penn. Sean Penn was on Hannity talking about how he thinks that our legacy will be, one of weakness if we don't.
Yeah, we need to use nukes.
Thanks,
Sean Penn calling for, he's supposed to be a pacifist. We need nukes now. Here was my tweet. I'm sorry. Let me pull it up here. And I said to Adam Kinzinger, the responses to this batshit crazy tweet are almost worse than the original batshit crazy tweet itself. So you think the crazy one was Adam Kinzinger, right? No. There's even more batshit crazy people. Lieutenant Colonel Bill Kilgore tweets, if our missile defense system is close to being 100%, I'd say go for it. Yeah, let's just go for it.
Is it?
Let's just go for it. Here's
let's
another
say if it's
creme de la
98.
Kremlin. Here's another one. It's really frustrating. He says, Ukraine is a vanguard of democracy in an increasingly autocratic world. Why is the U.S. not providing greater military support? What can I do?
Ukraine is a vanguard of democracy. Okay, where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Ukraine.
But the day that he eliminated his competition parties that day?
Unbelievable. I mean, and these are the people that are running the United States right now. I mean, these are the people that are continuing to run the United States.
But also just speaking to us, right? Because in the same story, I think I put another screenshot here of the same story is continuing to talk about the Bucha massacre, which we covered quite a bit in the last 2 weeks, right? And so it specifically, yes, that one. It continues to say the Azov Brigade says things to us. Okay, we're not sure about that. But then in the same story, it says Putin falsely claimed. Now, notice the hyperlink on falsely claim. Falsely claimed Tuesday that the Ukraine's accusations that hundreds of civilians were killed by Russian troops in the town of Bucha were fake. Associated Press reporters saw dozens of bodies in and around the town. The Associated Press saw bodies. It did not see who actually perpetrated the violence. We are not saying we know, but we're saying that seeing bodies doesn't mean you know who the killers were. Okay.
Well,
so then when you click that
video?
hyperlink to see what is Associated Press using as its proof that that was false, it's this story, which is just that Russians say it's false, right? So what they're saying is that Russians' claim is false because we reported that Russia said it was false.
Yeah, because doesn't that say Washington AP? What is the AP? That means Associated Press, right? Did they just like source themselves as a source?
They sourced themselves. Yes.
They sourced themselves as proof, and I was like, wait, I'm here asking you to prove it to me. I want to know too. Who killed these people?
Well,
Absolutely, I want to know that.
It's like Nick Price from the State Department, who or Ken Price. I never get the guy's
name.
Ned
is his
Ned
name.
Price. Ned Price. Ned.
I always remember his name because of Ned Ryerson.
Ned Price from the U.S. State Department, who we talked about it last night on the show, who was asked by that reporter a few months ago, "Hey, what is your proof? What is your proof of this? That they are doing these things?" And he said, "Well, I just told you our proof." And he said, "Well, no. Well, what are your sources? And what is the proof that they are doing this thing?" He's like, "Well, I'm telling you."
He's like, "I can write it down and distribute it for you."
That's what the
this
Associated
is the
Press.
exact same thing.
That's exactly the Associated Press is linking to itself about their about their proof here.
So I'm waiting, just like you, to find out, conclusively who did this. And why journalists are using themselves as proof of what the Ukrainian government wants us to believe. And we're going to put a pin in that, you guys.
Also, we want to talk about this because this is another angle to this story, which is we have the chemical propaganda. And again, these stories continue to crumble. And let me just remind you, I guess, right? We kept hearing this from Ukrainian officials. How many stories have now crumbled, right? Spider Island, or was it Spider Island, I think? Was that the name of the island where you had those
Snake Island?
Snake Island, sorry.
Yeah.
Yes, Snake Island, where you had those brave Ukrainian soldiers who when were confronted by that Russian warship said, "Who are you, Russians?" "No, I'm not leaving," and apparently were shot and killed. That didn't happen. They were not arrested. They were taken into custody.
I don't know. I'm
what's
sorry.
the
I'm not
word?
following this story.
You don't remember the Snake Island story? We wrote about it in the newsletter.
Yeah, I'm pretty
It was now
sure.
debunked.
Pretty sure Vasily Zaitsev was there, and the Red Baron as well, and all this.
Snoopy was fighting. I mean, we've debunked story after story after story now that have come from these Ukrainian officials with very little sourcing, and all of the Western media jumps all over it immediately.